slight technical difficulty.
Thank you for joining us over at the Exodus.io channel. Yesterday or today, depending on what type of part of the world you're in, we released our new update, version 1.6.1, or sorry, version 1.61.0. We made a lot of under the hood improvements and squashed a few bugs, but no new big features or asset integrations. So what I'd like to do today is something a little bit different. I have a very special guest, the CTO of Company Zero, new systems development lead of the Decred project, probably one of my favorite people in the space right now, Marco Peereboom. Welcome, Marco. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Glad to be on the show.
So what I wanted to do is I wanted to give people just kind of a deep dive into Decred and really kind of explain what is so special about your project and what things you'd like to change with the killer features, you could say, that Decred has. So if you could tell me a little bit about how Decred started from Company Zero and how it came to be what it is today.
Okay, well, so first thing is we actually started working on, we were working on in and around cryptography. We did a backup product, and that was back when we were still conformal systems. So that project did not work out the way we wanted. So we pretty quickly pivoted into the cryptocurrencies, and that was pretty early on. I want to say like in 2011, 2012 is when we started pivoting. So, and we started hacking on a thing called BTCD, which I think many folks have heard of. And it was a full node implementation of the Bitcoin client using Golang. So we maintained that. We were bug for bug compatible with that whole thing. For some reason, the Bitcoin core guys did not seem to have loved an extra implementation, which to this day is a little bit puzzling to me. So we were met with some hostility and some resistance instead of what we were expecting to be, hey, great, a new implementation, let's use it. So anyway, so there was a little bit of a rub there. We obviously did not enjoy that. So, and then we did build a couple of products in and around Bitcoin and using Bitcoin. Some of them were successful, some of them didn't do so well. But the net was that we had enough of what was going on in the community. And we also felt that Bitcoin had a severe lack of governance. So you had a lot of people screaming on the internet and a whole bunch of decisions not being made or made poorly. So we felt that we could do better. And that's kind of where Decred came from.
So you mentioned something that I wanted to talk about today, and you mentioned an issue with governance. So tell me a little bit about the governance system in Decred and how exactly that works, because you guys utilize both proof of work and proof of stake with Decred.
Right. Yeah. So we actually, even though some folks actually think that I'm a little bit down or negative on Bitcoin, I am not actually. I love the system. I think it does what it does very, very well. I just felt back then that something better could be done. So I wanted to just give that small, piece of information there. So that said, so I think that the proof of work is actually a pretty brilliant piece of engineering, and throwing that out while we started working on Decred was really just not an option. We like what it does. It does what it does really, really well. So, but what we needed to do is to make sure that the miners did not have ultimate power. So as your listeners always know, miners are the only one with write access to the ledger. So, and therefore they have ultimate power and can make all the decisions despite what other people want. I mean, people have soft power, they have hard power. Anyway, so we wanted to have a mechanism to be able to override proof of work guys. And that's where the proof of stake portion came from. So what that means is that gives the proof of stake, so the stakeholders of Decred, they actually have veto rights over miners. That is essentially where it came from. So we have a permanent agenda on our blockchain, and that is, was the prior block valid? So if a miner starts misbehaving, we can actually start stripping the miner of his rewards, therefore rendering all that energy that was wasted on the proof of work component useless. So that's a relatively large stick to be able to wield and to keep them in check.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you say strip the rewards, do you mean more so stop them from earning rewards, or in essence, a way of, doubling back and taking back rewards? How does that work?
So the rewards essentially never mature. So the block reward doesn't mature is essentially technically what it boils down to. So they are literally stripped of the rewards that they would have been getting.
Wow. So with proof of stake, I know it's opt-in, and you said that people have votes. So how are votes, and how do people earn votes with their Decred when through staking?
Okay, so the Decred staking mechanism is actually a bit complex, but let me try to boil it down a little bit. So first of all, we have the on-chain proof of stake portion. That is the one that you're actually actively describing, and that's the one that I was talking about when I was talking about big stake against the miners. So that fully happens on-chain. So a user can purchase tickets. Every block, you can purchase up to 20 tickets, and you can accumulate tickets, and those tickets then enable you to vote. So the more tickets you have, the more you can vote. But there is a pretty large pool of tickets that sits in our ticket pool, and then every block that is mined, 5 of those are being called randomly. They're called randomly in a way that is predictable to everybody, so everyone can validate if a miner is doing good or bad things. So that said, if you purchase tickets, then you get called on to vote on-chain, and all those actions are recorded on the blockchain, so every full node can completely verify that everybody is behaving per consensus. So
with purchasing tickets or with staking your Decred 4 tickets, how many Decred are equal to a ticket?
Oh man, I haven't looked in a couple of days. Last time I looked, I think it was about 90 Decred per ticket. Yeah, so it's not cheap, but comparatively speaking, if you look at like master nodes where you have to put a whole bunch of cryptocurrency on the line, it's still relatively cheap. And the reason we actually did not go with a master node or a DPoS system is because we wanted to get as many actual users as possible and not concentrate power again, by delegation or by proxy or anything along those lines.
Now, with talking about kind of maximum power through delegation and whatnot, I know this is more of a feature in Decred to incentivize people for holding stake. So unlike other ones where it can kind of be gained in a proof of stake system by creating multiple accounts and whatnot, that doesn't really happen in Decred because people can use the Decred, and because of the amount that the tickets kind of cost in Decred, it's not really viable to create more accounts. It's just buy your tickets with the Decred that you do have and put it up for the issues that you kind of believe in. Now with issues that can be voted on, is this really anything in the Decred ecosystem, or how are issues kind of divided upon? Is it like development things go into one kind of pool, and other things like Marco coming to talk to Exodus, go into another pool?
So yes, this is actually where a little bit of the complexity comes in. So for now, all the entire topic has been on-chain voting. So, and we obviously only use on-chain voting for consensus and protocol changes, because that's pretty heavy-handed stuff. And it's basically meant to do a controlled hard fork. So we change consensus, we need the entire network to figure out what the decision was, and if the decision was to take the new code. So the code has been written, it's been tested, and it's laying dormant inside on the network. So in other words, it can be activated upon the next voting cycle. So, and if it gets activated, then the entire network will actually hard fork essentially and go down that new path. Now, to answer your second part of the question, in order to see if we can buy some business cards and buy some printed materials and go to a conference, that obviously does not belong on blockchain. That is just too much data, and we also want to actually expose that to the entire stakeholder community. So what we did there is we created a system called Politeia, which is, by the way, is imminently releasing. We're doing some final checks, and then we will actually put it out there in the next couple of days, weeks. So that said, so that system collects proposals from users that are also stakeholders. So you have to be a stakeholder in order to submit a proposal, although not quite as high as on-chain voting. But everyone has to be a stakeholder, and you can prove that obviously by paying a nominal amount to participate in the system. And we're talking about like $1 or 30 cents or something along those lines. So it's really just to show that you are serious about it, at least install the wallet and put some effort into it. So, and the idea of that system is that users show up, they write a proposal, they put a disbursement schedule on it, and then the stakeholders decide yes or no on that system. So in other words, I could put up a proposal saying, hey, I would like to go to the Texas Bitcoin Conference in 2018, which I'm going to show up people. And that is obviously going to cost some money. So we would put up the proposal, a disbursement schedule, some milestones, and then as those milestones and those dates are being hit, the stakeholders are going to continue to authorize or going to deauthorize the disbursement of the funds. Does it all make sense? So, but that is a off-chain mechanism that is anchored on-chain. So everybody can triple, quadruple verify it on-chain, but all the data is off-chain.
I like that it's very community-centric and that anyone can kind of put in a proposal there to try and do something within the Decred ecosystem. Which kind of leads me to a new thing. We just talked about Politeia a little bit, the governance system. I saw a kind of concept that came from something that you worked on, proof of existence. If you want to talk a little bit about what proof of existence is, and then that being done through DCRTime. And what I saw actually was a real world use. I saw a birth certificate, I believe in Venezuela, if I'm correct, that was notarized, I believe, using DCRTime.
Yeah, that's I think it was Brazil actually, but
Brazil,
you're correct though. So a little girl's birth certificate was notarized on a DCRTime, and what DCRTime does, as you said, is basically a proof of existence thing. So you basically hash a document down, you end up with that hash, you submit the hash to the DCRTime servers, and then you're going to get a token back, which you can then use to recall your hash and make sure it's still correct. And then once it gets put on the blockchain, you'll know forever and ever that that document existed, at least at or before that time. So, and it sounds very trivial, but it actually enables pretty much the entire gamut of regulatory compliance. You can build entire systems based on an extremely simple primitive. And it is essentially, as you pointed out, a digital notary, right? Notary public.
Yeah. I was really kind of wowed by that when I saw that. It was pretty cool. We're always looking for those real world use cases to apply to the projects that we love so much. So it was nice to see something that people actually will use and could use today, right now. With kind of going back to the proof of work, proof of stake, why did you guys end up going with Blake over something like SHA-256, or if you wanted to keep it GPU mineable, another algo that ASICs hadn't taken over at the time?
We did take the DCRD code and fork Decred out of that. So we have quite a few things that do overlap with Bitcoin. So we wanted to keep the header, more or less the same. So that was one of the reasons. So one of the reasons we could pick Blake 256 is because it has the same size as a SHA-256. But the actual ultimate reason for picking Blake 256 was because we wanted to be GPU mineable and not at all at launch be ASIC mineable. We do love the ASICs, so we were not being ugly. We just wanted to give everybody early on a chance to accumulate Decred and become participants on the network. So, and if it would have been ASICs straight up, then people could not have participated. And we did that very deliberately to cast the net as wide as possible, because in order for the system to work, we need to have a lot of folks that participate in it, because we don't want to have, one or two people, some whales that could basically control the entire system. So, and an added bonus was that Blake 256 is actually a little bit faster to calculate than SHA 256. So all those things added together is the reason why we went with Blake.
Well, I'm happy you did. You gave me an opportunity early on to participate. So thank you for that. I have
and that's actually, again, exactly the reason, right? Because we wanted everybody to play, or at least everybody who knew and had heard of it and had at least had a fighting chance to accumulate.
Oh yeah, it was great. So I have a question from the from our audience. He wants to know if Decred is a secret coin, and I'm thinking if he is asking if it's a privacy centric coin.
Oh, so I need to be a little bit careful here because so the answer is not yet, but we are actively hacking on a privacy feature where we are going to hide the inputs and outputs that were used in a transaction. That is about as much as I can say about it because we are keeping that one pretty close to the vest. It's complicated code. It's going to take a lot of auditing, and if we screwed it up, then we may have to reset the idea. So, no needs to give people, too many hope right now. It's better to just sit and wait. But yes, we actually, that was one of the features that was very much in our roadmap, pretty much from day one. But it has been such a hard thing to get right that we always had bigger fish to fry. So, and I'm really glad that we are finally starting to get closer to delivering that. But stay tuned.
No, that's great. It's great to hear. Another thing that I wanted to kind of hop onto, because we're moving into this age of where centralized exchanges are becoming almost something of a worry. I'm trying to think. I think it was one broker the other day just came upon some issues, and there are always the worry of things like Mt. Gox happening again and people losing cryptocurrency that they have on exchanges. And I know that you're currently working on something right now that has to do with atomic swaps. I didn't know if that's something that you are able to touch on a bit and tell the community about.
No, I can touch on that a lot. So first off, Decred is actually the project that originated the atomic swap tools that, as far as I know, pretty much the entire community uses. So everybody who wants to do atomic swaps actually shows up with working code, the Decred project, and then we actually commit it to our repos. So we actually originated that. And then from that, we figured out, wouldn't it be nice if you could, so first of all, if you just look at atomic swaps by themselves, people should be dancing naked in the streets about it, right? Because now you have completely disintermediated exchanges. So there's not a third party, skimming off the top and making a profit off of it or holding your funds hostage. So it's a really great feature. So with that, we wanted to enable folks to actually use it, because the real problem, obviously, with only having atomic swaps is there's no price discovery, right? There's no order book, right? And you need that in order to efficiently trade. So what we want to go do with the DEX is essentially create a distributed order book that performs the functions that I said. So being an order book can also have price discovery built in, and then everybody who has the right code should be able, or in the right coins, should be able to participate in essentially trade peer-to-peer without any trusted third party in the middle. So that is a non-trivial problem. So it turns out that one of the biggest issues actually is dealing with lot sizes, because not everybody wants to buy one Bitcoin at a time. So you need to be able to slice it up, and that makes it pretty complex. We'll get there. So we have been debating it. It's being architected right now. It's being designed. No code has been written yet, but I hope that we can start working on that portion here pretty soon as well.
I'm excited to say that. I'm excited. Another customer had a viewer had a question about how you actually do stake, and if there's a minimum for staking.
So currently staking, the easiest way to do it is download the Crediton, our wallet. And then we can't wait for the Exodus guys to implement that. Pointing fingers. No, so but the easiest way to do that right now is to download the Crediton, which is the official Decred wallet. And one of the panes is the staking pane. And in there, you can basically purchase tickets. And we do recommend that you use a staking pool, because in order to vote, you need to be online with pretty low latency. So it's easier to outsource, the security and all the headaches that come with that to one of the pools that Decred has audited to make sure that that they are at least doing the right thing security wise, and that your funds don't and that you don't lose out on certain things. So but it's relatively easy. In fact, you can even set up an auto ticket buyer, which will buy tickets on the regular for you based on some sort of algorithm and some sort of price. And it will just purchase them and then vote for you. So, and by the way, the thing that we haven't touched on is when you vote in Decred, you actually get part of the block reward. So if I may go back all the way to the proof of work, proof of stake hybridization. So we broke up the block reward in 60, 30, 10. So 60% goes to the miners. They have real bills to pay, right? They burn real energy. So they definitely need to get the larger piece. So then the next 30% are divided by all the voters. So that's divided by 5. So if you vote, you get, what is it, a fifth of 30% sent to you. And then the remaining 10% goes to the treasury. So the network fund that we have that funds all Decred development. So you want to vote because you get paid to vote. It's pretty nice.
You just mentioned something that I want to point out for the people that are viewing this, that Decred is self-funded, that you guys have a fund that you guys take in from the block rewards. And then not only does the community help fund the things that you do, but you also are self-funded by the project itself, which I think is pretty cool.
So actually we are only funded by the network fund. We actually get offered donations at times and we politely turn them down because everything is paid for from the network fund. So the way that works is we have been accumulating 10% of the block reward since the dawn of time, so since Genesis, and we have accumulated quite a bit of it. I think that the fund is now sitting at 550,000 Decred, so that is a substantial amount of Decred, even if you convert it to dollars. We have been extremely frugal with it because we don't consider it our money. We consider it the community's money, so the stakeholders' money, because they are the ones who are going to decide ultimately where Decred is heading and where the fund should be spent. Yeah. So we do use it currently to pay for development. And Politeia is actually going to become the mechanism that is going to auto disburse that fund to the people that write proposals and then they get authorized. So, but Decred basically has its own entire economy. So everyone in the Decred project that is being paid is ultimately, or is paid in Decred essentially. So if somebody does a conversion along the way to convert it to dollars or euros or what have you, doesn't matter. It came from the fund at first.
That's really, really amazing. So let's see, we went through atomic swaps. So at this, one thing we were talking about the other day is scaling DCRTime and your plans for that. So I know that you have an event coming up. I don't know if you're going to do it there, but did you want to touch on that a bit in case anyone who's watching or watches at a later date before that event could maybe come and see you down there?
Oh, sure. I'll definitely plug that a little bit. Yeah. So Decred is going to be going to the Texas Bitcoin Conference, October 27th, 28th. We are a platinum sponsor, so we have a bunch of talks lined up. It's going to be a pretty awesome event. We got some great folks coming out and helping us present Decred and some various other topics as well. So that said, we also are in we're setting up a hackathon to actually see if somebody from the community is interested in making DCRTime scalable and highly available. So I actually wrote or drafted the text for that hackathon yesterday, and we haven't announced it just yet, but I can give you a preview. It's essentially taking DCRTime as it exists right now. Currently, it uses a LevelDB database on the back end. Sorry for the non-developers, but just real quick. So basically, that LevelDB database needs to be replaced with something that scales and then can be containerized and made to look like an actual internet application. So once that happens, and if that happens, then we are going to give a cash prize in DCR, of course, because that's the only currency we understand. So we are going to, so the grand prize is $5,000 US in Decred if it's fully functional and it has all the bells and whistles that we put down. If we get incomplete, an incomplete entry that wins the entry, then it would be a number between $2,500 US to $5,000, just based on the completeness of the implementation. So that is actually a great way to start working on a cryptocurrency. So we do these things on the regular. It's fun, especially if you have some specialized skills in Go and in containers and in databases. These are fun problems to solve. And hey, you get paid and you get the bragging rights as being the one who wrote it.
You know, I actually saw something really cool and unique when I was looking up things about the history of Exodus and Decred. And I saw that when Decred first came on, that there was a puzzle that was released where I believe it was $5,000 worth of Decred was hidden somewhere in the puzzle.
Yep.
Well, I checked and I saw someone already claimed it, so I didn't get to go through the puzzle, but I thought that was kind of cool. And after we were talking about the hackathon and people being able to kind of come and build their own things there to try and help scale DCRTime, it kind of connected itself about how you guys are always doing these events, because I've heard of the past hackathon you guys did. So what is I think what Mark means, he's asking if Decred will be able to link itself to other independent chains. So I believe he's asking if Decred has plans to be interoperable possibly in the future.
I'm not really sure what that means.
Like
so
outside of oh, go ahead. I apologize.
No, so Decred is really its own blockchain. So we basically did take BTCD, ripped out the consensus, the Bitcoin consensus rules, and replaced it with Decred consensus, and added on top of that, staking and all that kind of good stuff. So it is substantially different from Bitcoin, and therefore it is actually one of the issues we've had with some of the exchanges and other places, that we are just different enough that it takes a little bit more effort to integrate. So with that. We are not planning, but the stakeholders could plan on doing something along those lines, right? But currently the project does not have that on its radar. And again, we are really trying to get our own economy going, right? So so you guys are welcome to write code and try to write our coattails, but we may not, we might not be the ones originating that code.
I'm always impressed with the updates. I have Signal updates from you guys, and we were talking about the other day, like the new update offered SPV support, minimizing fees, Politeia from the app. There was one other thing I think on there too that was a pretty neat feature, but it seems like everyone's always working and you're always on the move. I feel like you're on a world tour right now.
I'm actually at home today, which is pretty amazing. Yeah, so my time is typically split up by hacking during the day and then doing events at night. I'm pretty busy in the community. So Austin has a very big cryptocurrency community. So there's over 98 projects, I want to say, topping 100 at this point, that are local here. So so I tend to go hang out with those folks, talk about cryptocurrencies and the challenges that we see coming ahead. So actually, some folks might disagree with you a little bit because and my phone keeps going off. I need to. Sorry about that. No, so but actually, this year has been mostly a behind-the-scenes development activity. So we are doing a lot of things behind the scenes that do not have direct, are not directly visible to users. So, but yes, we do have, the last release was very exciting from a user's perspective. The wallet now starts up in about 10 to 15 minutes instead of a couple of hours.
That was it. There was the other feature that I knew was a big one.
Right. So SPV is a huge deal. We actually redid SPV. We do it a little bit differently than the original Satoshi white paper version because that one actually leaked a little bit of metadata. You could see how much money people essentially had. And we eliminated that. So SPV clients all ask the same question. and therefore the servers cannot determine who's what or who has what. We do need actually a feature on the blockchain to make it super pretty and super perfect so that nothing can be cheated, but it is usable in its current state. Although at this point you need to trust the server a bit more than we'd like. So we are going to add, that better blockchain integration portion of it. So actually physically in the consensus part. So, but that is a huge deal because now once that becomes the norm, the default, because currently we still use the entire blockchain when you launch a wallet. But once that goes live, it essentially means that the wallet will be live in seconds. So you literally open up the app and you're good to go. And I'm sure that, the Exodus folks will love that, right? Because then they can make their wallet nice and fast, and it's going to make the backend actually also pretty drastically simpler. So that is super exciting. Really looking forward for that to come to complete fruition.
That was a PSA, Ryan. So I got a question from Andy in chat. He's wondering about Lightning capabilities with Decred. And I know that I've heard in the past some talks about Decred and Lightning, so I just wondered if you could give a little bit of information on where Decred stands with Lightning and if it will be enabled eventually.
Sure. Yeah. So Lightning has been a bit of a bear, actually. We really thought we were really close, and turns out we weren't. So that is one of those things that we have been actively working on, but it has just not landed yet. There's about, I want to say about 3 or 4 things left over in that portion. I think that I heard yesterday that the big holdup has been solved. So we are probably going to start moving forward. So even though the problem may have been solved, I just want to caution people that this is going to be dealing with people's funds. So we will have to audit the entire code path. So it's not going to be tomorrow, right? So don't hit me up on that. But we are moving forward again on Lightning, and I just don't dare to make a prediction on when it comes out. But we super want it, right? Because I mean, it's the coolest thing ever to be able to send quick funds from person A to B. And think about the possibilities once you start talking DEX and atomic swaps, and there's so much richness that you can get from that feature that so we really do want it.
Yeah, leave Marco alone about timelines, guys. As we know,
not, by the way,
things can change. At an instance, you could think something's ready and then go and start doing your testing and realize that there's no way. And we actually shied away from giving timelines and having a roadmap really because of that. We felt like having a roadmap for ourselves was kind of being disingenuous to our customers because we would have assets that would take an extended period of time during beta testing, which then led people who are not in the development side of things wondering, why is this taking so long? Is this not a priority to them? Do they not really care about my asset? And that's not something we want people to think at all. Our developers are always hard at work. As you see, there's a release every 2 weeks that these guys push out.
Yeah, I want to touch on that as well, though. So there's actually no way of making the project lead, for example, angrier than asking that question. So we've had egg on our face and readily admit to that. But again, people need to realize that all this stuff is actually really, really hard. And besides, do you want us to release code that is putting your assets at risk? Pretty sure the answer is no. So I understand the frustration, but patience really is virtue here. Yeah,
100%. The biggest thing you just said, we're dealing with people's funds here, and it's important that everything is 1,000%, before it's put out, so we don't have any issues that could possibly inflate balances or other issues like that. But we know Decred doesn't have those issues, so we're we're in the clear there. So Andy Rahman is asking if he wants to know if Jimmy Song is helping you guys at all. And from I'm aware, he's not. He just happened to, as such a hardcore Bitcoin maximalist, kind of give Decred a little props by saying that it's not as bad as all the other proof of stake coins or something along those lines. But just to entertain his question, is he in any way working with the Cred project at all, or I wouldn't think so, but.
So let's rewind a couple of years here.
Yeah.
So I have known Jimmy for a very, very long time. He started working, excuse me, sorry. So he started working, I want to say on Monetas years ago when he was doing a smart contract thing. And the code that they were using was BTCD. So I met Jimmy Song back in the day when we were actively working on our Bitcoin daemon. So we know him from back then, and he's pretty familiar. In fact, he's very familiar with our code base. So as Jimmy has progressed through his through his career and his in what he thinks is right, he has kind of moved a little bit to the Bitcoin maximalism, as you pointed out. But there has always been quite a bit of mutual respect between Jimmy and the Decred project, because again, he knows the developers that worked on it. He knows the code. In fact, one of the things that he teaches, he had Dave look at to see if he had it all correct. So there's really friendliness and acceptance that there may be a altcoin that is not all stupid according to the maximalists. But currently Jimmy is not actively doing things for the Decred project, but we have a history together. Okay.
I hope that answers your question, Andy. Yeah, I didn't think he was doing anything with it. I saw some chatter. I think it was actually in the Decred Slack. And I was going to mention that before, that, like you said, a lot of what's going on with Decred right now is kind of behind the scenes type of stuff. So for me, I pop in there every once in a while. So it may seem like, to me, like there's a lot going on, because I'm seeing a lot of chatter about different things in different channels. Let's see if we have any more questions for them. I thought I saw one other one in here about privacy features. We already touched on that, and no timelines for you guys.
Nope.
So I really think that's it. That's all I have for you today. Marco, are there any, apologize. Is there anything, any features or anything coming out that we haven't talked about that you would really like to let our viewers know?
So the big thing that is really about to happen, and this is one of those things where we thought we were ready and then somebody found something and then we pushed it, 1, 2, 3 weeks, and then we found another thing. So the Politeia really should be popping any second now. And Politeia is going to be basically the most outwards facing portion of the Decred project. And it's going to directly deal with where Decred is spent on where to take the network. So that is a pretty huge deal, right? Because now you, the stakeholder, are going to be able to direct where the funds go. So, and including Company Zero, which is will also be a contractor to the Decred project, right? So, and I work for Company Zero, so the Company Zero then bills the hours of the folks in the project. And that's how Company Zero gets paid in Decred by the Decred holding group at this point. But so everybody who is going to be participating in Decred is going to be beholden to that treasury. So it's going to be truly decentralized. It's going to be super exciting to see where the community is going to take this, because we are actually reaching completion on Decred, on the original vision. And at this point, we are, once we actually have Politeia all the way up, there's 2 more steps involved, by the way, which are non-trivial and going to take quite a bit of time. Let me talk about that if you don't mind.
Absolutely. I actually have a couple other questions that came in, so it's perfect.
Okay, so step 1 is get Politeia, the website up. It's pretty basic on the front end, but that's where you can put your proposal, and your disbursement schedule. Step 1 of that is basically there's going to be a human at the end of the tunnel who is going to disperse the funds based on how the vote went. So step 2 will be ratifying the votes on blockchain. So we are going to come up with a way that's going to say, okay, the Politeia proposal was a positive, and here is some sort of cryptographic proof on the blockchain that is going to validate that. So that'll be step 2. And then step 3, and that is going to be the most exciting one, is where we are actually going to develop some smart contracts that then are going to disperse the funds automatically as soon as the ratification happens. So what that means is that we then at that point have what we will call a full DAE, right? So we are going to be a decentralized autonomous entity. So, and at that point, the Decred project is fully sovereign. Nothing is done by humans anymore. Everything is done by the machine. So, and actually what we are going to do once we have the DAE up and running is we are actually going to donate the entirety of the network fund that we have with the treasury, they have been accumulating. We are going to donate that to the community and to the DAE so that the stakeholders can take it from there and, and determine where we go next. So it's going to be very exciting to see what's going to happen.
So it's essentially Decred's version of a DAO.
Yes, but we don't use that word because there's a bit of poo-poo on it.
Exactly. So just to, it kind of went over some people's heads when I made the reference, the kind of joke about it earlier, but Andy wanted to know about the bug that was found with Bitcoin, if that applied to Decred. It does not apply to Decred. Decred does not did not have any issues.
Well, there's more to it. BTCD also did not have that bug. So that was pretty interesting because we actually did go back and immediately looked to see if we had the same issue, and we did not. So this is actually interesting for the, I apologize if I offend any maximalists here, but I hear pretty much daily that you can run every Bitcoin version, every version of code you want. I think this is pretty substantial evidence that you can't, right? There needs to be some sort of accountability. Code does change, things need to happen. And this is actually why you need a form of governance so that you can catch and change existential issues. So one of the things that was at the core of Decred when we were designing the system is that we wanted to be around 10, 20, 50 years from now. And the only way to be around is that you deal with reality. Reality doesn't always do what you want. So you need to have a change mechanism, and a dispute resolution mechanism. And that's what the entire governance system gives you, right? So let's say something critical happens, like one of the crypto primitives that we use is deprecated because, it was found to be broken. So in Decred, we can literally go write the code tomorrow, start voting on it in a couple of days. And then within a month or 2, 3, we can roll a new version, or we can actually continue we will fork our blockchain to continue on a new version of consensus rules with a fix. So now imagine that in the Bitcoin world, where you have a lot of people yelling on Twitter about what the best implementation should be, and should we do this, should we do that? So that is going to be a less fast-moving mechanism. Does that make sense? So we actually feel that governance is really what gives you longevity. So if you, I want my tokens to be passed on to my children at some point, right? So I am going to invest in a coin that I have confidence in that is going to be around for a very long time.
Yeah, you've been through this discussion. You've actually kind of swayed me more towards that. The governance on Decred is the killer feature, like everyone says. For me, it was always DCRTime. I looked at that and saw, the time stamping of information other than, data other than money being sent around, being stored on the blockchain, and that you guys were actually doing that right now. It wasn't just a concept and people were talking about how it could be done. So that was, to me, always like Decred's killer feature. But through this talk, and really all the features of Politeia will kind of bring, you can really see the community governance, how that can work and how that can be and lead to longevity, which I think a lot of projects don't think about. They think about, like, what can we do right now? And okay, great, we have a payment coin. All right, well, what do we do next? So let's build this on top of it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
How long? It seems like you've kind of had this blueprint for a while of like what you'd like Decred and the ecosystem to be. And if that's true, how did you guys kind of come up with that? How long did it take to come up with the idea for the Decred project and like all the governance? And it's a really intricate project in itself.
Well, it is. So first off, I know this, that governance isn't sexy, right? That's not a sexy feature. So not a lot of ICOs and not a lot of hype around it. But in our opinion, it was always the most important thing to actually get right. And again, for longevity reasons. So when we were actively hacking in the Bitcoin community, we felt that not everybody got an equal voice, including very talented developers. And if you actually look at the ecosystem, a project like Ethereum exists for the exact same reason that Decred does, right? It's it was denied access to the code base essentially, and therefore certain things couldn't be done. So they were like, screw it, I'm going to pick up my marbles and I'm going to go do my own thing, right? I'm going to make my own sandbox. And Decred came a little bit from that same space. So we actually foresaw very early on the whole, Bitcoin Cash debacle that has been going on. So we were told the reason BTCD was bad was because we could create a hard fork. That was the big reason why it was bad. It's pretty ironic, if you look at 2017, and we have now what, 75 Bitcoins at this point.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a mixed bag there, but we saw very early on that stakeholders needed to have a voice, and that they needed to be able to direct where things were happening instead of just miners and then some elite developers that had access to the code.
Yeah, it's almost like a corporation within itself, but self-funded, not controlled by a CEO, one made up by a community.
Right. No, actually, that's if you want to talk about some more esoteric things, though. So I can, if you want to take the Decred economy, which is going to be fully decentralized by the stakeholders for the stakeholders, right? If you look at the current big thing in the United States, is the gig economy, right? So you turn on your Uber app and you go drive around and you get paid for doing some work. So that has disrupted the U.S. economy and industries pretty drastically, right? So the cab industry is completely redone. Same with, what is it, B2B? No, not B2B.
Airbnb.
Yeah, Airbnb is the other one that has completely upended the that industry.
Netflix, Blockbuster.
Yeah, all those things have been upended by this gig economy. So what Decred does, and if you want to take this to an economic argument, is we essentially created a managerless corporation, right? So the managers are the stakeholders themselves, and nobody can cheat. And now you're being paid to work on high skill work versus low skill work, because the gig economy is typically pretty low skill. So we have extended that now to the high skill work. So this is a very exciting development, even from a future economics perspective. The Decred project actually has all kinds of pretty substantial and drastic offers drastic changes to the way we think and do things. And if this works, then we can prove that we can run corporations without middle management. So just from a cost savings perspective, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, from going with your DEOs.
DAE.
DAEs, incorporating all of that, the DAEs with the on-chain and off-chain anchored voting. You really can do all of that because it gives each person who's participating a way to participate with a different amount of votes, or
yep.
Maybe it's just proposals. Maybe they have great ideas, so they're ones that are coming up with proposals and submitting them, and that's how they find their way into fitting into the Decred ecosystem.
Absolutely. And you know what? Not all ideas are good. Not all the ideas are bad. And this is a way to actually give the community a real voice, not just we listened, we read your email. No, I mean, there might be some actual funding behind somebody's idea. So it's pretty exciting. So one thing I actually did not touch on that I think we should also mention is that we typically have, we want very hard to have about 41,000 tickets in the ticket pool. So that is a number that emerged from the calculations. And that basically means that all votes have a 99.5% chance of occurring. So we wanted to obviously give everybody a fair shake. So those tickets are expensive. We recognize that. So in order to actually bring the price down of those tickets, we started working on an implementation called ticket splitting. So where you can divide a ticket by 32 individuals, 32 people. So, and that actually would also increase the ability of people with, of lower means to actually participate on the network as well. So we try really, really hard to be as inclusive as possible.
How did you come up with 32? And are those tickets divisible by the ticket owner? Like an account holder would have to purchase these tickets, and then they can then divvy out a portion of a ticket?
Yes, that is roughly how it works. So the vote is going to count one way or another, right? So the complication here is how do you find the people that want to vote yes, and you put all those on one of the share tickets, and then you have a person that wants to vote no, then you're going to find all the people that want to vote no on that ticket. So there's the reason it has not launched yet is because there are actually some pretty substantial issues with that. So we have it working, but you have to trust a third party to do what you want. And that's the one thing that, again, we like to be decentralized. So we want to take that trust component out of it. We probably will release it, though, at some point where people can actually start using the feature. And if you trust that other person or the other group to do certain things, then you have at it, right? We will not stop people from doing this.
Do you believe that may turn into a marketplace in itself almost? That was
right, because the tickets are linked to your wallet, so it cannot. And actively, we do not want that because we do not want people to sell their vote, essentially. Exactly. So clearly, it's going to happen, right? So somebody's going to collude with some others, but we just hope that we have enough diversity and intelligence in our community that is not going to be a real issue.
That's great to hear.
One more thing I want to add to that. So one thing that happens when governance is your main focus, what that does is that the folks that, so people get paid to vote, which trivially would actually solve all the US government voting issues. I mean, if you give people $25, they're going to be lying around the block to vote. So instead of donating to your presidential campaign, do that instead. But what I'm trying to get at, though, is that if you're actively participating in a Decred network and you are trying to get and spend funds, you are probably pretty educated, or you will educate yourself on the ramifications of certain votes. So, and we have seen so far with the votes that we have done that folks are very much in tune with what's going on. They understand the problems at hand, and then they vote their preference. So it turns out if you pay people to vote, they care a little bit harder.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I was talking with one of my colleagues about that the other day about proof of stake systems and how with a lot of just speculative investors, they're not using their tokens or their weight to vote, which then leads to, not in the case of Decred because it's not how their system. I was more talking about like delegated proof of stake, but then how people could actually, holders could vote in there, and how because of the lack of voting from people who are just holding the coins, it led to those delegated people able to kind of game the system in their own way. But with Decred, since it's an opt-in thing, and there's really not a way to game it because you want people to use their weight and use their Decred to put forward for tickets to vote. You're not going to just put money into a system to buy a ticket. You've created a system where you can't use Decred to vote. You use Decred to get the ticket to vote, and the ticket costs Decred. So and
you lock it up for the period as well, right?
Yeah. And you're literally locking up your funds on an issue or proposal that you believe in. So I feel like that extra step to where you actually have to purchase the ticket to vote for the issue rather than just submitting your tokens helps keep it from being gamified by, I don't want to say people with malicious intent, but people who are trying to game things to work more towards the proposals they may want.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, and we work really hard to make that as hard as possible. Right. And so it's a very intricate system. And actually one of the issues we have from a marketing perspective is that Decred is hard to explain in 30 seconds. And it's even harder. And then once you start getting into the specifics, it gets even harder to explain in 5 minutes. Right. So, but there's only one of me doing these shows. So,
yeah.
Right. So it's, we need to find a better way of explaining the issues that exist in the cryptocurrency space and how Decred has tried to resolve them.
Yeah. I mean, I got lucky. I got introduced to you guys from mining, and then it made me look into the project, and it still took me like months of looking into it to have a grasp of everything that Decred was doing, but I still didn't fully understand each component of Decred and how it actually worked with each other. Like it's this fine-tuned machine where each separate kind of, portion of the assembly line needs to be there for this ecosystem to work. And really, really intricate and really different than every other blockchain project that's out there at the moment.
Right. Well, and actually, one of the things that we did spend a lot of time on actually during the design phase was actually incentives. So incentives direct behavior directly. So so if your incentives are wrong, then your system is going to be used wrong, right? So and that's why we came up with these numbers like the 60-30-10. This is why we made stakeholders, veto, proof of work. So we spend a lot of time creating tension in the system because you do want tension. You want people to be not at odds, but at least be able to hold each other accountable for things.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you just can't have your own echo chamber where everyone just agrees with everything that you want to do, because then it's not really it's not necessarily a consensus system. You have no one telling you that maybe we should try this, maybe we should try that. If everyone's just saying, yeah, Marco, you're Decred Moses, so I'm going to throw everything, every vote at you for every proposal you put out, then it doesn't work out right. Let's see, Company Zero is still active. Last question from D-Day, and then we're going to wrap this up because we're coming on to about an hour. He asked if Company Zero is still active, and if so, what other types of projects are you guys working on there? Project.
Yeah, so I can only talk about the Decred project portions of it, and we are, a Decred holding group beneficiary. We are pretty much focused on Decred. That is a very accurate statement. I can promise you. So the folks that work still at Company Zero, pretty much all work on Decred. There's of course some HR and some other stuff that happens, but that is ultimately to also support Decred. So let me expand on that a little bit though. So there have been some folks that were at Company Zero that have moved on and started working on different things, and we have not been hiring new people, and that is also by design. So we want to make this as decentralized as possible. So we want our developers to show up from all over the world and not be at Company Zero. And the reason we don't want them at Company Zero is that we don't want to have, a Blockstream equivalent, right? Where there's a single company that, because if you join the company, you are going to invariably have an agenda, right? You're going to have a corporate agenda. Yeah. So the Treasury Fund was actually set up completely in order to prevent that from happening. Because if you swoop up and you hire a bunch of developers, you're going to, have more power than some other folks, right? So by having the Treasury and being able to pay people directly from it, it means that folks do not have to go work at that one company that has, has the majority of the developers. So it sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but actually having a Treasury is a decentralizing feature. So because now you don't, obviously you have to pay rent, right? You have to pay for you got to pay for groceries. So you need to be able to rely on it. So the Treasury is actually there to prevent more centralization, to add more decentralization.
It actually doesn't sound too out of whack to me, because for us, we're a decentralized company. We work all over the world, and having this experience, going back to working in one place, I can't really imagine that it would be as effective. I feel like I'm a lot closer and I get a lot more done. Being able to have the type of digital connection I have with my coworkers rather than the one-on-one, like sitting next to each other, coding or working on projects all day like you guys would be doing, So I think what you're doing isn't necessarily counterintuitive. I think it's actually a great idea to, outsource and decentralize the people that are working for you guys to work on Decred.
Yeah, I want to say though, so it would be cruel and unusual punishment again to have to sit in a cubicle. I'm not interested in that anymore. I'm used to the to being work from home and not having any traffic and deal with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, Marco, thank you so much for joining us. I really do appreciate you stopping by and filling in all of our customers, viewers about the Decred project. If you guys don't know already, you can find Decred, find more information on Decred at decred.org, at Decred Project on Twitter. If you want to follow Marco, at Marco Peereboom on Twitter. You can also directly from your Exodus wallet next to the Decred wallet, you will be able to find in your asset list links to their Reddit page, to their official webpage, and to their official Twitter account. Thanks again, Marco. And I look forward to having you back sometime.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much. And thanks Exodus for, for hosting this. And thank you so much for being such a supporter of the Decred project. I mean, when I have noobs, I always steer them actually towards, the Exodus wallet because it's so easy to use and it is so intuitive. And I got to say, that skin, that nails it. That makes it all worthwhile.
I don't use anything else actually anymore.
I can imagine. It's a wonderful wallet.
You have to have the Decred skin. If you don't have it, download it, guys. All right. Thanks again, Marco.